Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this little tutorial on how to paint this beautiful pink peony. And I'm trying to catch up here. I haven't done enough acrylic videos. And so I am working today at getting some more of these acrylic videos. So that's why my palette's a little messy, because I just filmed the cherry blossom just before this. So I've done a number of demos of peonies in oil. But today I decided we're going to do it in acrylic, and you can paint along in oil or acrylic because my style is the same in both. And so it's I paint what they call alla prima, which is a wet on wet. So I don't usually wait for anything to dry. I just go straight on with the next layer of paint. So that's why they call it that. It's a fancy word for painting everything in one sitting sort of thing. So I'm just using my typical gray wash just so you can see the pink. You need something on the background. So I'm using just some ultramarine blue and a little bit of this brown oxide. And then you can wipe or dab it away just the way I would with the turp and the oil. I'm using water with my paint. Looks exactly the same as I do it when I'm painting in the oil. So now that I've got that down, I can work on putting that peony in. So I sometimes will sketch out the peony, but I want to show you another technique. So if I just take some of this quinacridone red, which is a really nice red because when it mixes with white, it makes a pretty pink. If you use alizarin, you'll get gray. You will be frustrated because you won't get a vibrant, pretty pink. So you can draw your peony out, or you can, I'm using this number 6 flat. You can look at your reference photo and kind of you want to have room for those pretty green leaves. So I'm going to put it up about here. And this is just another technique, which is a little looser. So you don't have to be constrained so much to your drawing. I'm looking at my reference photo and I'm looking at the way, the way it's shaped, and I'm just sort of moving. So I'm looking at this petal and I'm just sort of, I'm going through it, but I'm blocking in the shape as what, a mass shape versus drawing all the little petals. I'm looking at it more as the overall shape it takes up on the photo. So there's this little petal that hangs down here. So just getting in that sort of the area that pink takes up, and still looking at those shapes, like how it comes in at the bottom, but I'm not drawing each petal. I'm just looking at the angles of the edges that I see. So this one kind of comes down like a bit of a triangle shape here before it goes back up. And this one comes off the edge up here. So, and then now I'm kind of adding a little more detail here. But it's a little bit looser this way. If you draw everything all the time, you can't, especially with a flower like a peony, you want it to look loose and fresh. So before I add any highlights to that, I'm going to get some of this Hooker's green and maybe a little yellow ochre, just so I have a nice dark green to start with. And I'm going to put in some of those that dark green leaf that's kind of comes underneath there. Before I start with the values. And I've got some Viridian, mix some of that in, and put in some of these dark leaf shapes that you see. I like to get some of that in there just so that there's a little more contrast when you start adding the lighter pinks. The darker values are going to really help you with that. So I'm just going to get in some more dark. And later I can go in and I can add some of this cad yellow light and some viridian, and you can just add some of those lighter greens in there like that. There's a lot of green in the background, so getting some of that in there. Okay, so then I'm gonna go and get some of the lighter pink. So I'm gonna get some white, and I've got that white in there with that quinacridone red, and I'm looking at the reference photo, and I'm gonna pick a petal like this one here. You know, that edge that comes down, you can look at the way it comes down. These ones kind of come around, and sort of pick a few of those out like that. And your reference, it doesn't have to be exact. We're just looking at the basic feel of that, and I'm going to put some of those in. Oops, I got green on mine. Green mixed in with my nice pink. Whoops. So anyways, I'll just get more paint and I keep going and pick out the edges of some of these. Like this one, you might just leave the back of it dark and pick out the edge. And same with this, sort of pick out some of those edges. And over here, there's some real light petals. But you want to keep the dark in there or you'll lose the shape. So you just want to pick out some of those brighter pink edges there. And I got that green in there. So it got a little messy. And then go get some more quinacridone red, and you can go in and add some of those darker inside of the petal sort of brush stroke. Just kind of blend in some of that darker pink back in. And you can take a little bit of that quinacridone, drag it back up into the light area there. So it's really blendable while you have this much, you know, while it's nice and wet like this. Otherwise, with acrylic, you know, it dries pretty quick and you can't blend. But I've got a good amount of kind of water and a lot of paint on my brush. So it keeps it from drying out like that and then getting kind of stuck. So I work pretty fast. So if you're going a little slower and you think, oh, I can't keep up to that, well, you can do it. You can get the same results. You know, if this were to dry, I'm going to come back in anyways and darken some of that. So you can do it layering on the dry too. But I just paint usually pretty quick with the wet paint. And I'm going to go back and just darken some of the petals there. If it doesn't get dark enough, I would take some quinacridone and use a little ultramarine blue to get some of these darker shadows in. Like over here, you could get some of that nice shadow in these ones back here. And then, you know, you can take some blue and, you know, make some, use some cobalt blue, maybe some of that transparent brown oxide and white, and mix up a gray. You know, you get some of that brown oxide, white, and cobalt, and you could mix up a bluey gray for the background and just kind of make it look a little more darker around these edges here to really show off the pink. And I kind of like that unfinished look where there's bits of the background coming through, but you could paint it all the way if you wanted to. So, and then once you get some of that dark in there, you want to just get some more white, make a real light mixture of that highlight, and then you can go back and really get some pretty edges there. You know, get some real bright like that, so you get some real pink there. And sometimes I'll take a little bit of that pink, maybe darken it and add some of the background color in, and I'll just for fun throw some little bits of pink around like that. So now the fun part, I can show you how pretty these little tutorials can turn out, and you can frame them or just use them as practice. But when you're using this canvas paper, you know, there's less pressure on you if you're a beginner to come up with a painting. Sometimes if you're buying canvases, you think, oh, if I don't do a good painting, it's going to be a waste. But this is a really good practice lesson, and just don't feel bad if you don't get it right the first time. Just throw this paper away and start again, and or go on to a different tutorial and come back to it later, and you'll have fresh eyes. So I hope you enjoyed this little tutorial, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. And happy painting!